Dr. Fauci and COVID. A couple of items in the COVID news today. First, it breaks today that Louisiana is going to charge workers extra money if their spouses or domestic partners choose to remain unvaccinated. I think the report was as much as $100 a paycheck. They're going to withdraw extra if your domestic partner doesn't get the vaccine, because they say, we employ you and it costs a lot to take care of an unvaccinated person who winds up in the hospital, and therefore you're going to have to pay more. I mean, so once again, it's like, how about if my domestic partner is obese? How about if my domestic partner is an alcoholic? How about if they're a drug addict? It's just the COVID unvaxxed, irrespective of whether they have natural immunity and have had COVID. And on top of this, Dr. Fauci comes out. He's tried to walk it back since because he got a lot of flack for it, but he told CBS over the weekend, it's too soon to say whether we're going to be able to have Christmas gatherings. Then he said it was misconstrued. It was like, well, you're on camera. Anyway, that it was too soon for Christmas gatherings. And you tell me whether he's in denial that this pandemic, thank God, seems to be finally waning.
Yeah, he is, because the irony is, and there's a lot of ironies with him, that he doesn't follow the science. Because if you do the math of the number of people who have been vaccinated, it's well in the high 50s. And if you do the math of the people who've had COVID, I know there's overlap between the two groups, it's up to over 100 million. So we're getting to that 65 to 75% that either have antibodies or vaccinations. So the number of people becoming seriously ill has peaked, but he's not interested in that. And I say that not emotionally, but empirically, because remember, from the very beginning, he told us that masks would not be valuable, but then one mask would, but two masks might be better. Mm-hmm. That herd immunity would kick in at 60, but maybe 70, but maybe 80 or 90. But there's no way that this virus was engineered in a lab. It was naturally occurring from bats or pangolins, but maybe it may not or may be. But he would never give money to the Wuhan lab, but he did, and he routed it through EcoHealth. But it was not a gain of function. But in fact, if you read the description of the Chinese grant, it obviously was. So he doesn't have a lot of credibility. So what is he doing? And what is the theme that we see? And I think the biggest problem he's had, before I answer that question, Megyn, is that he cannot answer when he's asked. The science now suggests that if you've had COVID, you will have a natural level of antibodies that might offer superior protection than artificially from a vaccination. And therefore, could we develop a sophisticated antibody test so you could either choose or one or the other? He can't answer that. He just says, well, we'll look into it. So what unites all this contradictory thing? And I think he's a practitioner of what the noble lie is, and that is an elite who feels that if he tells the truth, the unwashed or the uneducated will do what he doesn't want them to. So if he says, well, if you have natural immunity, don't get vaccinated because you don't need to, then people might wait and not get vaccinated and thinking they might have a better chance of getting, less side effects from the virus. Or he might think if he doesn't tell people that masks are valuable at first, then they won't go out and buy them, and then the medical practitioners will have enough. He said that. But he's always changing the story to what he thinks will be good for all of us and his particular view. And he's lost now all credibility. And he too is like Millie. He should be gone. He's not doing his job, and he's casting doubt. And he can't tell us the questions that people have that you mentioned, that they're angry. They say things like, well, is it true or is it not that somebody under 12 is either not as likely to get the virus, or if they get the virus will not have serious consequences? Or if somebody's 18 to 24 and a healthy male, are the side effects, maybe swelling, cardio swelling or something like that, is about as serious as the side effects from getting the virus? Or if you've had the virus and you get a shot, you have a higher propensity for side effects. And if you look at his logic, it's absolutely Alice in Wonderland. He says, well, even if you've had COVID, you've got to get the vaccination, even though the vaccination is not as prophylactic as getting the virus. Then if you take that upside down, you would say, okay, so you need two two sources of immunity. You need double indemnity. Okay, Dr. Fauci, everybody who's got the vaccination, since you want double protection, and we know it's not as effective as COVID, should they go out and take the mask off and be around people so they can not only get COVID, but get the vaccination? Because that's what you're saying. And it doesn't make any sense. And I think he's lost credibility. And I think he's going to end up like Ruth Bader Ginsburg tragically did. And Robert Mueller, remember, they're both for a while, they were representatives of the, they romanticized them. They made them into icons, movie stars. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was standing against the court. Robert Mueller was going to hold Trump to account. And then suddenly Mueller found nothing, and they said, oh, Bob Mueller was a joke. And then Ruth Bader Ginsburg wouldn't step off the court, and she lost the liberal slot, and they got angry at her. And that's what the fickle left does. And I think they're going to find that when Fauci's no longer useful, that he won't be St. Fauci with bubblehead dolls and cartoons and all that stuff about him.